Hi guys! This is my first sit-down video, so please bear with me as this is the first time that I'm sitting in front of a camera talking. 2 months ago, Jordi and I started blogging. Jordi designed a website and I started writing. Most of you that have seen our videos before and that have seen our channel know that we filmed about Mojo's life, and we educated people on healthy diets for dogs and other subjects related to dogs. And a large part of our blog will still be dedicated to this subject, and we have educational pages about raw diets, behavior and weight maintenance, and other helpful blog posts will still be about dogs. Another part will also be dedicated to sustainable and healthy living, and in the future we would like to write about our travel experiences. I really enjoy making videos, so I thought that this channel could evolve with us, and we will still be filming about Mojo and about diet and other dog-related subjects. We will incorporate other parts that we also write about on our blog. And today I will explain why Jordi and I are vegetarians. Now this might sound very odd to those of you that know that we feed a prey model raw diet to Mojo, meaning that we solely feed her animal material, and sometimes it's quite contradictory to us as well, and we do realize that it might be odd that we are vegetarian, but we would like to explain our reasons today, and yeah, continue watching if you're interested. You can read about today's subject on www.mojoandfriends.blog in our recent blog post. It will also be linked in the description below. So let's start off by explaining why we thought about becoming vegetarians in the first place. Up until 6 years ago, I still lived with my father, and it was normal for me and for Jordi as well to eat meat during every meal, and we never considered that skipping meat was an option. It had never occurred to us that it was odd that we ate meat, and yeah, meat was just part of our diets, and we didn't really think about it. We just ate it. And then at the age of 17, nearly 18, I moved out of my father's home and I went to live in a small dorm room here in Wageningen, which is where I did my studies, and I had to suddenly do my own grocery shopping and cook my own food, and that over time really got me thinking about what I ate and what I bought, more so than when I was living with my parents still. Jordi and I both studied in the direction of life sciences here at university, and when we moved in together we both had already learned a lot about the consequences of meat consumption and the effects that it can have. So over time we gradually skipped meat in some meals. We started using organic eggs, and we actually cut out most of the chicken that we used in our meals, and because we both really like cooking, it was quite easy to experiment making meals without meat, and it was actually quite easy to gradually switch to a vegetarian lifestyle. We did have some issues with the most low quality meats actually. We really liked the unhealthier processed snacks, but gradually we learned to just skip it, and other meals can be very tasty as well without meat. So we just learned to make alternatives to the regular lasagna. We just skip out the meat and we add more vegetables, and it's just as delicious in our opinion. So the first reason for becoming vegetarians is actually the current livestock situation and its effect on sustainability and climate change. Although people have been eating meat for a very long time, in the current society it's not really sustainable at all. That's due to the high population size and the amount of meat consumed per capita. And most of you will know that climate change is caused by greenhouse gas emissions, but what some of you don't know is that 18% of these greenhouse gas emissions come from the livestock industry, and that's quite a high amount. And in the Netherlands, people actually eat over double the recommended amount of meat each day. So they're supposed to eat 100 grams, but they eat well over 200 grams. And we don't know how that is in other countries, but in the Netherlands it's quite extreme. And since we really care for the environment, it's just a clever decision for us not to eat meat. It's much more sustainable, and yeah, so that's our first reason. Now, to those of you that do eat meat and that don't necessarily think about the meat consumption and the effects that it can have, if you think about talking to a vegan person or a vegetarian person, something that you might assume is that they are hardcore animal lovers that don't want any animals to die. And that's not really how we are. And I'd like to explain that, because we obviously love animals. I mean, I have Mojo on the sofa snoring next to me, and we have 2 birds as well, and we care for them and we love them, but it's very natural for animals to die, and it's also very natural for animals to eat each other. Jordi and I both learned a lot about animal welfare at the university. And what we know is that farmers really want to maximize production whilst limiting their expenses. And this often results in poor living conditions, poor food quality, neglected hygiene, and the living spaces are often very small. Now, one of the things that some of you don't know is that selective breeding has very negative effects on the animal welfare as well. And as an example, wild boar, so pigs in the wild, give birth to approximately 4 to 6 piglets, and in captivity the number of piglets is always around 12. And this actually has effects on the quality of life of these piglets and of the sow as well. And often some of the last piglets are actually born dead, or they die because the quality of the milk they get when they are born is much lower than the other piglets. Additionally, due to lack of enrichment, animals are quite often bored and frustrated, and they start showing quite antagonistic behavior towards conspecifics, so they start biting or pecking at each other. Now, to me, it would make sense to enrich the environment and to improve the pigs' lives and to do something in order to make them stop. But what the farmers do is they have the tails docked off, so pigs cannot bite each other's tails anymore. And they have the chickens' beaks clipped so that the chickens can't bite anymore. So instead of tackling the cause, they actually fix the outcome. So the animals are still frustrated, bored, they are still aggressive towards each other, but they can no longer bite each other's tails off, or they can no longer perform feather pecking, so that will still create more stress in the end. And that's something that some people don't know, but it's one of the examples of the poor living conditions, and it's something that we do not want to promote. So that's another reason why we do not eat meat anymore. Now, as I mentioned before, and that some people will know from watching our previous videos, Mojo is fed a prey model raw diet. This means that she solely consumes animal material, meaning meat, bone and organ. And this is very contradictory to what I said before. We do not eat meat, Mojo solely eats meat. Sometimes it feels very odd to us, but I enjoy preparing her food and I enjoy feeding it to her. Now, I have always loved dogs, I've always studied dogs, so we could never imagine a home without a dog. We have owned Mojo for a little over 2.5 years, and we have been vegetarian for approximately 1.5 years. So that means that since we got Mojo prior to becoming vegetarian, she already ate a meat-based diet. when we started considering living a more sustainable life. And this diet is actually very natural for her because she is a carnivore. She is a facultative carnivore, meaning that she can adjust to a plant-based diet, but it is very unhealthy, and I do not like to force her to survive. I want her to thrive. I want her to live the best and healthiest life possible, and a dog can only do that on a meat-based diet. Now, the only thing that we could do to exclude meat from our consumption as a family is by owning herbivores, by not owning a dog, cat, ferret, or anything like that, and that's not going to happen. So some people that are vegan or vegetarian do feed a vegan diet, and we highly recommend not doing that. If you do not want to feed meat to a family member, then don't acquire a family member that has to eat meat. Acquire a rabbit or another animal that is a natural herbivore. Now, although Mojo eats a meat-based diet, we do acquire our meats from good sources. She mainly eats organic or wild-shot meats, and we try to get meats from people that thaw out their freezer, or get some scraps from the butcher or from the local market. We get some fish organs and fish heads. We will talk about that subject more in depth, but we will summarize it as every individual requires a species-appropriate diet, and they deserve it. And Mojo is a carnivore, and hence she will be fed like one. So we have two main reasons for being vegetarian, one being sustainability and the other being animal welfare. We explained Mojo's diet choice, and we ranked vegetarianism very high. Mojo's health is much more important to us. But that brings us to another subject, because although it wasn't an initial reason for us to be vegetarian, it actually improved our health, and vegetarian diet can be much healthier than a diet that includes meat. One reason being that meat often contains high amounts of saturated fats, and one of the substitutes for meat is nuts, and nuts actually contain a high amount of unsaturated fats. Now, this doesn't mean that a diet consisting of partly meat is not healthy, but it means that due to not including meat in our diet, we have to exchange it with plant material. And we noticed that over time we actually started consuming more legumes and fruits and vegetables and leafy greens, and it's actually improved our health, and we would never have consumed close to half of the amount of veg and fruit that we eat right now. And it's also because we learned about more fruits and veg since we started eating a vegetarian diet. We had never tried tofu, we had never tried chickpeas, and yeah, there are so many things that we eat now that we didn't even try before. And it has really brought us a healthier diet, and also the option to eat much more than we did before. Now, this video roughly summarizes why we are vegetarian and why we make the decisions that we did. And it also explains why we feed Mojo a specific diet that is not similar to what we eat. But that's because she's not a human, she's a dog, and she needs a different diet. We will explain that later on in a blog post and a new video, but if you want to read a more structured blog post about the subject of today, please click the link in the description below, because we would love for you to check out our blog. And there will be new videos very soon, both about sustainability, health and traveling, but also about Mojo. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!